Big win for delivery drivers in New York City. And it's actually kind of sad that it's a big win because all it is essentially is a pee break. So the New York City's council members on Thursday voted to pass a series of landmark bills aimed at improving pay and working conditions for food delivery workers operating within the city. Here's what it is. The first of its kind legislation, which targets app-based delivery companies such as Grubhub, Uber Eats, DoorDash, will set a minimum pay, allow workers to keep more of their tips, and limit how far workers can be asked to travel for deliveries. It'll also guarantee workers access to bathrooms, so you actually will get a pee break. So that's it. This is the legislation was written in collaboration with LDU, which is Los Deliveristas Unidos, a collective of mostly immigrant app delivery workers. So there's that. In terms of the reception, how people are reacting to it, worker advocates say the New York bills, according to The Guardian, are a good start, but do not address some broader concerns about the gig economy in the US, and that more comprehensive legislation on a national scale is needed. So the big takeaway is that a government has voted on legislation to protect workers and start giving out rights to them that aren't guaranteed by the company. So that is a dynamic shift. There's a huge shift seismically in what's been happening. There have been some other votes. Maybe we'll talk about it in a second. But Rayy Vana, what do you think about this?
I mean, it's a good start, although it is so disheartening to read that they're being guaranteed access to bathrooms. Like, holy hell. That's just basic human rights, basic decency. The fact that this wasn't already guaranteed to them just is so horrific, and they have to fight for basic workers' rights. And just it's a small victory, but hopefully it's indicative of more victories down the road. But God, is that terrible? These workers are so deeply mistreated.
Yeah, and exactly. This is one of those what year is it stories. Like pretty soon, delivery drivers will no longer have to work in coal mines without a mask, like without access to daylight and oxygen. Like that's the kind of thing. Like you gotta pee, as Lenny Bruce once said, eat, sleep, and crap. Like you gotta be able to do those things. And so this again, it's gotten a spotlight now. It should always have had a spotlight since these companies started to maybe signal at becoming ubiquitous. Also there's a huge boom in this with COVID. Uber Eats, the food delivery segment of the ride-hailing company Uber, grew by 190% in 2020, adding 36,000 couriers in New York City alone. And we just wanted to get into some of the specifics of what the conditions are like for people who have these jobs. So in New York City, according to the Brooklyn paper, 5 food delivery workers have died on the job in Brooklyn over the past year. At least 4 were killed in collisions on the road. Deliveristas are now classified as independent contractors. Even though 64% of those surveyed said they work at least 6 days per week, with 33% working 7 days per week. Excluding tips, the median hourly wage for delivery workers in New York City was $7.94 in 2020, according to the project. The hourly net pay when including tips was still below New York's now, like since 2020, $15 an hour minimum wage at an average of $12.21. They also have to cover a bunch of expenses. I won't read them all, but like they have to buy their own bikes. They have to maintain their own bikes. There's no equipment allowance or anything like that. And these companies have spent millions of dollars seeking other ways to protect themselves. So they don't want to pay their workers. They don't want to treat them with the same kind of protections that they were able to take advantage of that were afforded to taxi drivers, like through years and years of working for protections and whatnot. There was corruption in that, but still, like, these folks are working for you all day, driving, doing something that is very dangerous and feeding the nation. And those companies, like in California, there was a giant initiative to to like, they did a whole, what is it? Like they voted in a referendum to just basically make it so that you couldn't treat those part-time workers as though they were human beings. And luckily that was kind of stopped by the courts. But Ray, any thoughts?
Yeah, especially with like Prop 22, it really shows how, how little organized, and not necessarily organized, but lobbying power the drivers who are being mistreated have versus how much power these large, billion-dollar corporations have to spread disinformation, especially when it came to voting on Prop 22. They were able to say, hey, your prices of your food are gonna go up if we have to do this. The drivers actually don't want to be protected under these laws. They would prefer to be private contractors. And all of this nonsense, things that are not true. But when you have that much money to spend on billboards, when every time you want to confirm an Uber ride, you have to say, I will vote yes on Prop 22. When they're able to put ads on TV, however they're doing it, when any YouTube video you're watching has a Prop 22 ad in front of it, it just really, really shows that there is a massive disparity in the power between the workers and the corporations, particularly when it comes to protecting the workers.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.